Sometimes things happen, and no matter how badly we want an answer, there just aren't any solid ones that present themselves. From Jill Dando to Prince to the Black Dahlia, on today's list I'll be covering some of the celebrity mysteries that honestly have us all baffled. Before I get into this list, you guys, I want to give a huge shout out to today's video sponsor, Babbel. Babbel is the #1 language learning app in the world with more than 10 million subscriptions worldwide. As a Polish person who knows absolutely no Polish, I've been using Babbel to help me connect to that part of myself and learn some new words and phrases. Like today, I learned how to ask someone how they are by saying jak się masz. You get to choose how long each day you want to dedicate to learning your new language, so it can easily be fit into any schedule no matter how busy. When you go into the app, it shows you what lessons you've already completed, but it also gives you reviews so that you can go over what you've already learned, which helps it really sink in and be retained. I love that Babbel is totally ad-free because my learning is never disrupted, and Babbel uses real-life scenarios so that what you learn can quickly be applied to your daily life, which is something that I think is totally unique to Babbel. You guys, right now, only for a limited time, Babbel is offering you 65% off of your Babbel subscription. That is such an amazing deal, and all you have to do is head to the link in our description box to get that 65% off of your Babbel subscription, but it is only for a limited time, so do not miss out. All right, let's get into this video, you guys. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have David Carradine. David Carradine was an incredibly famous action film star, best known for his martial arts roles, particularly the Quentin Tarantino films Kill Bill or the TV series Kung Fu. In June of 2009, David was 72 when he was found dead in his hotel room in Thailand where he was shooting a movie. At first, it appeared that he had possibly taken his own life, but his death was eventually ruled accidental, which was fairly widely accepted, but his ex-wives have said that they believe it was some sort of assassination. After David's death, his widow filed a wrongful death suit against the company that was producing the film he was working on. The suit claimed that David had been left alone while everybody else headed across town for dinner, which was apparently a breach of his contract. David had an assistant from the production company, and when he reached out to the assistant an hour after they had all left the hotel, David was told that they all had left already and that David needed to figure out his own arrangements for the night. While there isn't an open investigation into his death, it is highly skeptical what his ex-wives had to say about his death, and rumors continue to swirl about what might have actually happened to him that night. It is so unfortunate that we may never fully know what went on in that hotel room. In our number 9 spot today, we have Jill Dando. Jill was an English journalist and television presenter until she was killed outside of her southwest London home in 1999. This created the biggest manhunt the country had ever seen since the Yorkshire Ripper in the 70s. A man named Barry George was originally convicted and sentenced to prison for this terrible crime, but he ended up actually being acquitted years later, which now leaves this case unsolved. Jill's next-door neighbor heard a surprised gasp from Jill, but he never heard a gunshot and said it sounded more like someone who was greeting an old friend. The same neighbor looked out of the window and actually saw whoever the killer is, but of course at the time didn't know who he was or what had just happened, and he didn't recognize the man, so he was unable to give an identification. There are a ton of speculations and rumors about who took Jill's life, and it ranges from a potential stalker to maybe even a hit job. Hopefully one day there will be answers on why someone would have done something so horrible to Jill. In our number 8 spot today, we have Thelma Todd. Thelma Todd was a wonderful comedic actor and a well-respected woman. On Monday, December 16th, 1935, Thelma was unfortunately found after she had passed away in her car. The circumstances surrounding her death have always baffled people, though. It is said after leaving a dinner with friends, Thelma returned to her home but had been locked out, so she headed to the home of Jewel Carmen, who was the former wife of Thelma's lover, Ronald West. When Thelma arrived there, it was speculated that she went down to the garage and got in the car, presumably to warm up. The death was eventually ruled accidental and the cause was carbon monoxide poisoning, but people just could not accept that answer. The night before Thelma was found, she was at the dinner party with friends, and the autopsy report showed that the contents of her stomach were not things that had been served at the dinner, which leaves the question, Where did she go that night that has not been accounted for? Some people think that she may have taken her own life, but people close to her say they believe that that is highly unlikely. Some people accept that it may have been accidental, but some people believe that some sort of foul play was involved. In our number 7 spot today, we have Jack Nance. Jack Nance was an actor best known for the series Twin Peaks. On December 29th, 1996, Jack had lunch with a couple of friends and they noticed he had a bruise under his eye. When they asked him about it, he just said he got into it with someone outside of a donut shop and that he guessed he got what he deserved. Jack left the lunch complaining of a headache, and the next day he was found passed away in his home. It turns out his injuries had caused a subdural hematoma, which was his cause of death. This would mean whoever he got into the fight with, whether it was an accident or not, was the one who caused his death and should most certainly have to pay some kind of price for that, but no one knows who this person is or was. It really does make you wonder if this person knew who they had punched and if they knew that they caused his death. You really hope that if they did know, they would have come forward, but who knows? In our number 6 spot today, we have Virginia Rappe. Virginia was a model and silent film actor before her passing in 1921. On September 5th of that year, she went to a party at Roscoe Arbuckle's suite at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. There are many accounts of what exactly happened this night, but none match up exactly, so the events are still quite unclear as to what really happened. Virginia suffered some sort of trauma at this party and was taken to the hospital where she passed away on the 9th due to a ruptured bladder and the subsequent infection in the wall of her abdomen due to that. There are two main possibilities for what happened to Virginia that night at the party. The first theory is that some underlying health conditions she had, such as a UTI or an STI, mixed with the consuming of alcohol, may have caused this. I am certainly not a doctor, so I'm not sure how possible or likely this is, but it is one of the main speculations. The other one, which many people insist is what actually happened, is that her injuries were caused by a violent attack on her by Roscoe. This was first claimed by the person who went to the party with Virginia, but they were often discredited due to their record of extortion and blackmail. Roscoe went through 3 manslaughter trials, but was ultimately acquitted for the crime. Even though this happened a full century ago, many people still debate what may have happened to Virginia that night, and unfortunately, we may never really know. In our number 5 spot today, we have Prince. You guys, this is a celebrity death that hit me so hard because Prince was a huge part of my life growing up and is one of the best musicians and artists our world has ever seen. Prince passed away on April 21st in 2016 at 57 years old, and it was a huge shock to fans everywhere. For the month before his passing, he wasn't feeling particularly well and actually had to be hospitalized at one point. A few days after Prince left the hospital against medical advice, he was found dead in his Paisley Park home. The official cause of death was an accidental overdose of fentanyl, but ever since that day there have been suspicions and speculations about what may have really happened. For starters, it is unlikely that Prince knew the pills he was taking were actually counterfeit and laced with fentanyl, and no one knows who supplied the pills to him in the first place. Certainly supplying somebody with a lethal amount of a drug unknowingly to them would be considered some kind of a crime. Prince had previously spoken about chemtrails, and people suspected that his death may have had something to do with that, but that has never been proven. I hope one day we get concrete answers on what happened to Prince, but I am so grateful for the music and the memories that he left us all with. In our number 4 spot today, we have Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was an author and pilot in the 1920s and 30s. She broke records by being the first female aviator to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, but she also played a huge role in the formation of the 99s, which is an organization for female pilots. In 1936, Amelia started planning her around-the-world flight, and she even had an entire plane built with her specific modifications, such as additional fuel tanks. There were 2 attempts at the world flight, the first one obviously being unsuccessful, but the second was catastrophic. Amelia was flying with navigator Fred Noonan when they lost contact with anyone on the ground. What's crazy about this is that they know virtually everything that happened on that flight until those final moments when everything became a mystery. They have never been able to find the plane, or Amelia, or Fred. Some theories as to what happened are that the plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean and sank, or some suggested that they may have made it to a nearby island but were found and killed for some reason. This one is a huge mystery that's been plaguing people for years. I wonder if one day we'll find out exactly what happened. In our number 3 spot today, we have Christopher Wallace, who is much better known as the Notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace was one of the most famous rappers of the 1990s, and even though he was just getting his start, is considered one of the best rappers of all time. Biggie was a New York rapper, but he was unfortunately killed in March of 1997 after a drive-by shooting while he was in Los Angeles. In 1996, the tensions between the East and West Coast hip-hop and rap scenes were rising, and after the death of Tupac in Las Vegas, rumors began to swirl about Big and his possible involvement in that killing. Unfortunately, the people who killed Biggie have never been found, and that is where the mystery comes in. There are a lot of similarities between the killings of Big and Tupac, and since neither of them are solved, there are so many rumors about what exactly happened. Some theories span from a gang member with financial motives to a planned hit by a record company in order to boost sales. There is so much speculation around this, and I really hope that one day we find out who committed this unbelievable crime. Notorious B.I.G. was only able to release 1 album before his death, but had 3 albums released posthumously, with the first one achieving a diamond certification in the US. In our number 2 spot today, we have Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix is an absolute legend and one of the most influential musicians there has ever been. His life was cut tragically short when he passed away at the young age of 27 on September 18th, 1970. While his cause of death is pretty concrete, there's always been a lot of mystery and suspicion surrounding his passing. Jimi passed away from asphyxia due to aspirating on his own vomit. It turns out Jimi had taken too many sleeping pills. Some people speculate on purpose, but there's little evidence supporting that. Jimi's girlfriend at the time has changed her story multiple times, and people have even said it changed every time they spoke to her, but she was the last person to see him alive and was the one who found him and called the ambulance. Despite having called the ambulance, when paramedics arrived, she wasn't there, and she claimed to have been on the ambulance ride with Jimi, but paramedics say that that is not what happened. The coroner who examined Jimi declared his cause of death, but didn't try to determine a time of death, and also cited insufficient evidence of the circumstances. He commented, "The cause of death was clearly inhalation of vomit due to barbiturate intoxication, but there is no evidence as to intention to commit suicide. If the question of intention cannot be answered, then it is proper to find the cause of death and leave it an open verdict." It is such a tragic story, but Jimi's legacy sure lives on through his music. In our number 1 spot today, we have Elizabeth Short, or the Black Dahlia. Elizabeth Short was an aspiring actor, but her life was cut tragically short by an incredibly inhumane act. Elizabeth's body was found when she was only 22 years old in a vacant lot near a park in Los Angeles in January of 1947. The crime was highly publicized because of how graphic it was, but whoever did this was sure to leave little to no evidence behind. A few days after the crime, someone claiming to be the person who committed this crime called to say that he would eventually turn himself in, but wanted police to search for a while. But he also said that he would send in some of Beth Short's belongings. He did follow through on this and did send in things such as her birth certificate, but this didn't end up giving investigators any leads. During the initial investigation, 60 different men confessed to this crime, and since then there have now been over 500 confessions, which is insane. There are honestly too many theories on this one to even get into right now, and it is quite possible that we may never know exactly what happened to Elizabeth. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. I've been your host, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye!